Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show we have Phil Traylor, who is a builder, investor, and restoration contractor. Phil, welcome to the show.
Very nice to be here.
Absolutely. We tried to catch you the other day. We're having some technical difficulties, but here we are. And so we're glad to have you here. Before we hopped on, we were talking about your background in real estate, in contracting, and it really sounds like it was in your blood.
Yeah, so my grandfather was a builder and developer here in Metro Atlanta and got my father into building, and my mother was actually a real estate agent. So I grew up going to my uncle built homes and all my distant relatives. And so that was something that I remember going out and seeing the guys pouring the concrete, standing in the concrete boots, and always wanted to do that. And then I wanted to get into the septic fields that they were out running and everything. And it was always intrigued me. So I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. And it's not an easy career, but it'll, take you places, I guess.
Lots of siblings?
I've got a sister in it, and I'm sorry, not in it. I've got a sister, and she managed to stay out of it, and so good for her. Actually, she's running a property management up in Greenville, South Carolina, so she's kind of...
She's not all the way out of it.
Yeah, it just dawned on me.
So, from an early age, did you know, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing? Or when you saw your family being involved in it, and you saw, hey, I could envision myself in this career path, that it became clear to you that you were passionate about it?
Yeah, so early on, I started working when I was in middle school with the family members and everything, and it really was something that I knew I was going to do. And I took vocational school in lieu of foreign languages and things like that, where I wouldn't have to do certain classes. So not very smart in anything other than construction. That's kind of goes with the territory. But I really enjoyed it. All my friends were doing the same thing, so it was. I didn't really get into the football thing in life. All my friends went to that. I went to work, and so
Yeah.
It's been great to me, and I really I love what I do and always have.
Talk a little bit about that. You actually hit on something that's, I think we're going to see more of this. But you were working at a young age, sounds like in high school. Were you working in the trades? Were you working in the family business as a tradesman, or were you just helping pick up the slack, if you will, around these different job sites?
So fortunately, I had a lot of family that was doing it, and so I was able to go out and work weekends and stuff like that. Anytime we were on vacation, that was vacation to us, and so we got to go out there and do all the little trades, and it turned into cleaning out houses and stuff like that. To then eventually started a framing crew, then multiple framing crews, and building some homes, and it just kept growing from there. But starting out, we would lay sod, we would sweep the houses out, we would mix the mortar to stucco the foundations, and anything that we would possibly they would hire us to do, and they were paying us nothing, so it was a good deal for everybody, and we got to hang out with the cousins.
So at that time when you were, I'm assuming like 16, 17 years old, and you're going through this, doesn't sound like you were, making a lot of money, but I'm sure you could see, the potential there. Were you thinking in your mind, I'm going to be at the forefront of this. I'm going to be running a business like this, when I'm older, or was it more like, I'm just working and I'm happy to be here?
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Probably more of the "I'm just happy to be here" type thing. We came up as small thinkers, and we didn't really think, hey, there's a whole lot out there, and we were kind of the way society is. We don't
Yeah.
really talk about success and things like that. So my grandfather was always looked at a little different than, so say some of the other folks in the family who hadn't done that much. And so I kind of watched the way people treated him and thought, well, I need to get there, but I don't know how. So
Right.
initially it was just I needed to do something, and I enjoyed doing it. And so I didn't really think there was much outside of that, do what
This
others
is
do.
really interesting. The idea I had I've had family who've not done real estate, but there's kind of they went the education, multiple degrees, and I always looked at them and I'm like, was it osmosis that they chose that path and I didn't choose that path, so why was I different and why did they go that path? And I realized like they weren't necessarily even talking with each other. It wasn't like around Thanksgiving they were like, hey, uh, let's go get a MBA or something like this. I never saw those conversations happen, but it was just like through osmosis that they went that route. Were you having like these kind of detailed conversations with your grandfather, like, hey, what do I have to do to get to the next level? Or was it more like just kind of through osmosis, just being around that you saw, okay, let me see what I can do?
Definitely osmosis. My grandfather was a good man, but he had a whole lot of grandkids, and I was just one of those grandkids. I think there towards the end, he was kind of, he and I were getting closer, but it was a little too late at that
Yeah.
point. So I just picked my path. I had some distant family members that were kind enough to allow me to go with them and start working on some of their jobs, and it just, kept getting bigger and better, and more and more opportunities, and so. Uh, Finally spun out on my own right out of high school and just never really had a real job. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse.
You're the only one that would say construction work is not a real job. So God bless you for saying that. I know it's a backbreaking work in many cases. Talk to us a little bit about the first couple years out of school, what that looked like for you, because I know, my background was in automotive sales before I got into the real estate space. And I can say from the outside looking in, it really seemed like there was no real clear path for me, and I think for a lot of people, to how they could navigate this space. Now it's pretty clear to me, but back then it was so unclear. Did you have a similar experience, or was it very much like this is my path? I'm gonna have my own crew, grow the crew, do my own flips, invest in real estate. What was the path like for you, and was it clear at the time?
I was blindfolded, I guess. So I ended up helping my uncle frame a house, and I was the mule that carried the lumber. And we got through that first house, and then there was going to be a second house, and then we got through that when we were out of houses to frame.
Hmm.
And so then I started college, and I started that for like a quarter, and I was miserable, did not enjoy it at all. And I took off a day to go deck a roof that somebody else was framing a house, and so me and another guy for $4 a piece of plywood, we went out there, and I skipped a class. And so in order to go deck this roof, when in skipping that class, the teacher said you're going to get a zero on your turn in test.
Yeah.
We'd already got in groups and probably had a 95 or better. And she said that's going to count as a zero. And I was like, well, I guess I'm done here. And so went immediately out into the field and started framing. Found a framing crew to work on, and just ran that up until '08, and everything stopped. Had 6 crews of guys that were running, and it was just constant, things moving at a rapid pace. And I learned different language working with different people. I absolutely fell in love with Hispanic folks, and
Hablas español, Phil.
de madre mucho.
Esos gringos aquí podemos hablar un poco de español, es un poco raro, pero podemos.
Yo tengo
Um,
amigos de 20 años trabajando con...
it's always surprising when I break out the Spanish. Phil, so you talked about basically deciding one day to, school isn't for me, building a roof, excuse me, a framing crew. And it sounds like you built that pretty much on your own. Where were you finding these jobs from? How were you able to build the business? How are you able to get the right people around you with, it seems like, your own guidance?
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
So we would go drive through a subdivision where there was activity happening and talk around and find the right people to talk to, and then finally this builder would talk to that builder. And growing up around it, I knew some of the framing crews that used to frame my parents' houses and my grandfather's houses, my uncle's houses. So we'd run out of work over here, we'd go team up with them and do a house or two, and then a couple of those guys would peel off. And I'll be honest, a lot of these people you just wanted to get away from, And so when I found
Yeah.
my core group of people, I mean, I've still got some that we worked together since 1998. Now the son's 20 years old. He works with us. And so, I mean, we've got a lot of them went a long time, we worked together, but just navigating through the people you don't really want to be around and keeping the ones close to you that you do is what allowed me to have what success we've found.
At that point in time, you're framing homes. At what point, and you're talking about like 2008 timeframe, at what point in time are you starting to dabble yourself as being an investor in the real estate space?
So 2003, I had basically no credit. I guess it was called stated income back then. So I had no money. I guess I had decent credit, but it wasn't, I had never done anything with it, but I bought my first lot and built my first house in 2003. And so I was able to get this thing and did all the work that I could possibly do, bought the lot. They loaned me the money and I built the home, and I was fortunate enough to finish it. It was a great home. And I kept it for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years and ended up renting it there for a little bit, and sold it and did really, really good. And so then I've just kept rolling them in. I'm actually currently building a home right now that's, I don't know, my fifth or sixth that I've just rolled into the next one. So it's been a blessing over the years.
For sure, being in that space, you're your own team, your own contractor. Now I'm going to ask you some specific questions. You don't have to give away all the game, but as much as you feel comfortable with. 2003, you bought this lot. You're a young guy at this point in time, in the framing space. Do you remember the cost of the lot and how much you spent on materials for that first build?
So it was 28,000 for the lot, and I built the house for 136,000 all in. So it would have cost me a little more had I, paid somebody to do some of the things. I mean, we did a lot of it ourselves and made some mistakes doing it. I laid a bunch of tile in a house that later was tore out and done by a professional. So we've made our fair share of mistakes over the years.
That's how it happens, though. I'm not at all a tradesman. I haven't had any of the experience that you've had, which I really wish I would have. But I have helped just demo some homes, right? And I'm able to see that the folks who are themselves their own contractor, if you will, they're not hiring it out. They're in charge. Tend to see a little bit, or many cases, see much of a better return because they're personally invested in it. They're overseeing it. Um, in your experience, and I know you're in this space, how can people who are doing fix and flips, who are doing rehabs, make sure that everything is moving according to schedule and that they're not uh, misusing any of their resources?
Well, I'll be honest. I had a bank, I think 2003, 2000, or I'm sorry, about 2005, 2007, that didn't want to loan me the money. And I don't know, it was kind of the time started getting a little weird, but she, I think, could tell through the BS that I didn't know my numbers and things. And so I would have likely not I would have gotten myself in some trouble had I proceeded with that construction loan. But knowing your numbers is hard to do. So if you're not looking originally at the budget, if it doesn't make sense, you really need to ask others and reach out for help, because a lot of people want to help. Nobody wants to see somebody fail.
Yeah.
And so I would think basically knowing your numbers up front and getting some people to oversee those, you would certainly set yourself up for success. The people in today's age don't have the luxury of the stated income loans where you don't have the money to put up. The banks don't necessarily want to give you the loan unless you're deeding the lot over to them. I mean, it's a
Right.
totally different environment across the board. So I sure wouldn't want to be the one getting in at today's, times, but
In Atlanta at the time, of course, people have seen the movies, and you see it was almost like I don't want to say free money, but there was definitely something in the water there. Were you aware as a young guy that, hey, this is kind of a rare period, that this is like a great opportunity and I have to seize it, and that this could potentially come to a close in the future? Or was it more like, this is all I know?
that's all I know. It's all I've ever known. So it was my passion. I was fortunate enough to, it's kind of like what I always wanted to do. So I haven't had a motivation problem my whole life. I'm just getting up and going after it because it's what I chose. And I mean, it wasn't something where, I work with my mentor says, you're either, a lot of these people that come in business, they didn't want a boss. And I was kind of not necessarily that I didn't want a boss, but I certainly wasn't an entrepreneur and like, hey, I'm just going to, build this massive organization, which I don't, hadn't quite built yet, but we're working towards it and we will. But I'm certainly working towards the entrepreneur from the technician that turned, business owner that's now working in that direction. So it's something that we're learning along the way.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
I think as a listener, and then as a wholesaler myself, when I talk to folks, and I talk to a lot of my guests about like the typical path of a real estate investor, real estate entrepreneur, you kind of start with networking if you're not in the business. And in my case, I knew nobody. All I knew was realtors that I would see online and, on Instagram at the time. I don't even think TikTok was that big when I was first looking at potentially getting into real estate, although it might have been. And, I was just networking, just trying to meet somebody. Eventually I met somebody, learned a little bit about wholesale, got into the wholesale space, did a couple deals. I actually sat for my real estate license this morning at 8 a.m. Thank God I passed. But,
Congrats.
it wasn't clear to me, the path. It definitely seems like you didn't have that issue, but I also see that you've grown and done multiple things in the real estate space, and that you're currently involved in restoration work. And so, where have you been able to adapt and be agile? And was that something that was by necessity, or was this more of you just saw an opportunity?
So necessity. I have to go back and say that my mother was the real estate instructor, and I failed her class. So not everybody can do this. Yeah. It's embarrassing. True story. So 2008, or I guess really 07, 08 started happening. We went from 6 crews of framers and carpenters down to 0. And so then there was a hailstorm that hit Atlanta. And so I got into the insurance claim space and by way of roofing, and I helped a friend start a roofing company. He had a partner. I didn't really care for that guy and still don't. And so we ended up spinning off and just saying, hey, I got to do my own thing. I can't, I'm loyal, but I can't do that. And so once again, I didn't want a boss.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going and starting a roofing business, and that took us 13 years. We went from roofing and we added on multifamily kind of capital improvement renovations, got into the fire and water damage side of things, realized we didn't have to chase storms and that people actually like restoration contractors, unlike roofers. So the roofing name went away, and we built a good business. And so I had a partner up until 2020. I sold my interest in that business to him. He continues to run it, and I had a non-compete and kind of got back into the building remodel stuff. But I'm building back the restoration business with multiple verticals now and loving it.
Now, forgive me for asking a basic question, but some listeners may have this as well. Restoration, what does that apply to? And are these like very old Victorian homes? What is this? What is this term, and what does it apply to?
So if a building burns, floods, has mold in it, tree hits it, car runs through it, you name it, we go in there and we fix it. We work with insurance companies, we work with universities, we work with any kind of properties that have perils that are in need of repair. So typically they're funded by an insurance company or a claim. So it's kind of guaranteed money.
Yeah, and in that sense, there's not as much of a pitch, if you will. They have a hole in their building. Someone's got to fix it. This is not an if but a when, and then you have to be the person. So I'm imagining that to this day and in general, many of your clients are finding you. Is that the case?
Absolutely. It's very much relationship based. For 17 years, I've been dealing with adjusters and agents and property managers and risk managers and stuff like that. And so it's when the loss happens, they want to deal with the right person who knows how to handle it. And so that's when you build a business that handles claims, it just makes everyone's life easier. The insured wins, the adjuster wins. The pricing is set essentially when the claim happens, when the
Yeah.
loss occurs. So it's really simple for us to get in there and take care of that customer and get them to be a customer for life.
So are you? This is a totally new space to me. I actually haven't. I may have had in New Jersey, but a guest from New Jersey, but I'm not sure if he was doing this specifically. When you're getting folks who are going through these situations, are they reaching out to you through a referral, like through word of mouth? Are they Googling? How are most folks finding you?
So we work a lot with strategic partners. So it could be like today, we just had a storm blow through 2 hours ago. We have tree services that need like they don't there's no money in tarping the roof for them. So
Right.
they make their money on the actual removal of the tree. We'll tarp it, we'll do the dry outs, we'll do the reconstruction, we'll hold their hand through the whole process. We deal with plumbers who are out first when the house floods. We deal with like we've had some fire department friends over the years that knew of a house that burned, and if they would give the information over to the homeowner, we would board them up. We were
Hmm.
on a lot of the preferred vendor programs at my last company, which was a massive mistake. They don't necessarily, the idea sounds great, but
Yeah.
they're not necessarily an advocate for the customer. And so the
Hmm.
customer and the contractor kind of gets their brains beat in order to make them work, but that's the way they choose. We deal with, real estate agents unbelievably are not really that helpful when it comes to finding restoration jobs, but
Yeah.
insurance agents refer them, adjusters kind of just want the customer to be taken care of and retain that customer. So we got all kinds of different sources.
Do you how regularly, and this may be a question where you either don't deal with or it's just not in your scope, but how regularly do you have people who are coming to you asking, if you can assist with insurance related things, or is that by that point it's already resolved? Do you not facilitate that at all?
So we do a lot of what we consider reconstruction after other companies go in and do the dry out. For whatever reason, a lot of people come from carpet cleaning from the industry and then they turn experts that dry houses and buildings and things like that, but they don't do reconstruction.
Yeah.
Well, being from the craftsman side of things, reconstruction was second nature. And so we came in it backwards. And so a lot of times we'll come in and follow other mitigation companies that go in there and dry the buildings out before we get there. And we're able to go in and put it all back together and, work with the adjuster and insurance companies and stuff like that. So we almost prefer that because it's, second nature.
Right, and I'm curious what your feedback is. I asked many of my guests this. We get a lot of fix and flippers on. We've had a few guys in the industrial, commercial space. We've also had a couple of builders, and we have one guy, a really interesting guy, who just does communications on Airbnb. Like that's all he does is manage the communications. Doesn't do the cleaning, just manages the communications for Airbnb for folks who are all over the world, like Ghana, Belize, Dominican Republic. And so there's so many different ways where this business is changing. And I'm sure you've seen ways that the business is changing. I'm seeing it. Um, where do you see kind of the future with this technology going, from the way customers are finding, who they're going to go to the way folks are building their staffs and operating as a whole, and how is it affecting you, day to day?
Well, I had a beer with a guy one night, and he builds software, and so I see that the more technology that comes in, the better the communication is going to get. And so, some of the contractors, are not the best at communicating
Yeah.
or updating folks and scheduling and things like that. And so, I think that the more of this stuff that happens, first off, there's too much of it already, but I love it, embrace it, and I can see that coming. Kind of like it's already there in the commercial space. I see it coming more into the residential space where there's requests for proposals, and when this
Yeah.
contractor stops and this one begins, I see an opportunity to kind of cut through some of the general contractors that don't make it, and put the accountability, raise that ceiling to some degree by transparency and knowing where people are able to go and find credentialed contractors that they know are going to stand behind the job and get rid of the riffraff that makes the contracting a bad name. So I think that the more of that stuff that happens, we already have pricing systems that we have to stick with, that we download a price list at the beginning of the month, things like that. So a lot of that's dictated by others, and you have to kind of agree to it or not. And I think as things continue to improve with technology and stuff, that you'll see more and more of the old mom and pops fizzle out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-sided sword. You always want to be supportive of small business. At the same point in time, when people are doing, projects that could be a substantial financial investment for them, you do worry that, they could run into, quote unquote, chuck in a truck, and it doesn't end up working out for them. And I like to hear, Phil, what you're saying, because I've spoken with a few guys in this space talking about bringing almost like a commercial type approach to residential, to where the communication, the booking, the pricing, any type of plan, that they would see, digitally is very, very clear to them. So everything's laid out. And I think that's what people are also expecting, same thing with homes, you have, the companies that will buy your home remotely, and do everything pretty much over the phone. And we're just seeing that in so many different industries.
Yeah. I got off a call to be on this one that was a automations call. So we've got a software that we're working through, and we're building out this engagement model. So as you go through our process, you get different notifications and things like that. Of course, we don't want to be just generic and blow people up, but it allows kind of for us to answer some questions before they're asked, knowing what's coming. We know what's going on the next one, on the next step, but they don't always know that. And so it's improving communication, and it's setting expectations, and it's just giving the customer a better experience overall. And that is ultimately our goal. And so we're just, thankful that we can do things like that. I do believe in exactly what you said was kind of where I'm going with this other gentleman in the software is if you have people that treat a residential project almost like they're bonding, they can't screw the customer. They got to do what they're supposed to do, and their feet, are held to the fire. And if they're able to kind of put everything, the customer can get better communication and better, like, contractors in general, if they're credentialed right. Now, I was kind of hating on preferred vendor programs earlier. It's a great idea, but they don't do that. They kind of, they're all about their little fees and everything. If you could get an actual credentialing company that would do a very good job and credential the homeowners, the
Yeah, that's
contractor,
true.
sometimes we find some interesting cards there too.
This is interesting. Is there a system in place like an Airbnb, not an Airbnb, but like a platform where people can go? I'm sure there's got to be. I just don't know of them. Where you can go to see like a contractor's job history, so you can see these are the homes that they've worked on, these are the results, and then you could also see like a homeowner's history, like almost like a booking. Does anything like that exist?
So we're Better Business Bureau members, and it's probably just shy of a thing of the past. I couldn't tell you. I think we got one opportunity, and we actually won the job that we've worked with somebody that found us through them, but it's not something you run into often.
Yeah, it's not.
We really do need to be able to rate folks. Obviously, Google ratings, very, very important, but no one rates our customers.
Yeah,
And
nobody.
that is something where, quite honestly, you don't want to slander anybody, but if you provide facts and upload, documents and things like that, there's some shysters out there on both sides of the fence.
There's no question. I mean, I mean, to talk about this, Phil, like if you go book an Uber, you can rate the rider. I'm pretty sure. I haven't taken an Uber in a while, but I'm pretty sure you could rate the rider. If you are on Airbnb, you can rate the guest, right? And these are, what is it, $50 for an Uber and $200 for an Airbnb or whatever the case may be, maybe a little more than that. But when you're doing a new roof, when you're remodeling someone's home that was fire damaged, right? These are huge investments. You would think that this would be, and actually is, ripe for disruption. There's this huge opportunity, I think, for some software company to come in here and say, hey, look, with AI and with everything that's going on, how can we create like a track record, a digital record of homeowners and then of contractors, so everything's just transparent. We can say, hey, this is their history and this is their history, and you guys choose.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I've toyed with the idea of rating customers. That just, it's the way of the future, right? I think somebody's listening at some point is going to say, hey, make an idea out of it and run with it.
There's some engineer who's listening here who's gonna take that. But Phil, we are coming up on time here, but before we go, I did want to ask you, just in broad strokes, you came from the business, your family was in the business, and I think there's a lot of real estate education from the wholesale vantage point for folks who are, wanting to get into real estate, go maybe do fix and flip, start off with wholesale. And I think there is a trend towards the trades, but I haven't heard, and maybe we're seeing this, but I haven't heard specifically as much of a push towards, home builders. And it may be because people think it's dominated by the D.R. Hortons of the world. Where are you seeing the industry heading? And do you think we're going to see more young people involved, just in general, in the trades and in contracting work?
Well, as far as the young people go, I'm absolutely envious of the arena they're going into. If they have the willingness to go out there and do anything, they're not going to have to compete against robots. Just don't think so anytime soon. I think they're going to have, if somebody's willing to go out there and do it, they're going to be limitless as to what they can do. As far as the D.R. Hortons in the world, I've never been into the tract homes. I've always, like even back when we were framing, I like doing the custom stuff. Still just built custom homes. That's all we'll ever do. And I really do. You have to come in by the trades in order that's the point of entry, unless you silver spoon and you're able to get straight into some home builder somewhere. And I don't know a lot of people that did that. So it's a challenging thing. I mean, it really is. And it hadn't got any easier. So I think you have to come in through the trades, or somebody's got to bring you in. My dad was a great guy, but he just didn't build that much, and he kind of did some inspections and things like that, and it wasn't his passion. So it's just got to be your passion if you're going to want to do it.
And I completely agree. Definitely have to be passionate about it. I also am a huge proponent of the trades. Although I am not a tradesman myself, I almost wish that I had more of that experience, just so that I could, oversee a job site if I was doing a flip. Now I'm probably going to have to partner with somebody who has that knowledge, or pay someone else. I would love to have had that experience. But Phil, we are coming up on time here. How can where can folks go to get a hold of you?
So you can go to pectg.com, or you could give us a call at 470-763-1732. And we're located in Northeast Atlanta, and we'd love to work with you on any of your flipping projects and things like that.
Yeah, folks. Well, if you guys have any needs in the Atlanta area, please reach out to Phil. This wraps up another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.